Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan. I am joined by the wonderful, the beautiful Kayla. And welcome back, Kayla. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
I am glad to hear it. So, we are still talking about the practices of energetic hygiene. And if you're following the tempering path, we have a whole lesson that is built within our Discord that you got to hear all about it last week. But this week, you get to see the response questions from our point of view. We'll talk about kind of why we chose those questions and give some of the answers that we have had happen in our own personal path and kind of give you guys some insight into those. So, there's a few of them we're going to go over, but the cool thing about these reflection questions is they're not to judge you or to tell you that you must answer these perfectly, otherwise you're never going to move forward. They're to make
No.
sure that you are comprehending what was written in the lesson and to also
Yes.
make you think about you as a person and as a practitioner and your own path and how it relates. A lot of these questions end up being things we don't really think about on the daily basis. Not necessarily that we should be thinking about, but that we should be considering to make sure that we are honestly being honest with ourselves and truthful and making sure that we are not living I was going to say living a lie, but that's not really right. I guess more living it in a way that makes us think that everything's fine, but it's only fine on the surface. They dig a little
Right.
deep.
Living in our full honesty. Living
Yes.
in our full truth.
Yes. So, in terms of energetic hygiene, I guess we're going to dive right in. The first question that we chose was, where in your life do spiritual boundaries look good in theory, but fall apart in practice? Be specific about what and who crosses them. So, the reason that we chose this question is because a lot of times we think our boundaries are really locked in and we know exactly what we're supposed to be doing and that our boundaries are solid and we never revisit them. We never look at them again. And we say, oh, yeah, no, my boundaries are great. I don't have to look at those. And that's almost to a point of ego. Almost. Nobody's calling anybody
Yeah.
egotistical, but it is to a point of almost ego of saying, I don't have to look at these because I set them.
Right. Right.
And honestly, looking at your boundaries, objectively on the regular helps make sure that your boundaries are still what you want them to be. Because we change, you know, I would say we probably change from month to month on the minimum, and on the maximum, we change year to year. Who we
We
were a
grow.
year ago, yeah, we grow. Who we were a year ago is not who we are now. And we're similar, but we are not the same because we've grown and we've changed and hopefully made ourselves a little bit better. And again, not in an ego way, in a way of we are more secure in our sovereignty, secure in who we are, trusting ourselves, making sure that what we're getting out of life is what we want it to be. So, I guess we will start by answering that question. So, Kayla, do you want me to go first or do you want to go first? I don't care.
You've been going first the whole time, so you go first.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm happy to share. All you have to do is be like, pay and shush. I talk too much and Kayla just lets me talk. So
Hey, you have good things to say.
I do. So where in my life have my spiritual boundaries looked good in theory but fall apart in practice? Oh gosh. Probably I interestingly enough, I have trust issues. That comes from trauma and all that other stuff. I have very guarded walls that I keep pretty protected. Sometimes, um, I think that my guards are safe and I've let somebody in who was not beneficial or productive for me and thought that they were, thought that I could be a good friend to them, that I could help them, that they were going through a tough time and they needed somebody to be there for them. Not in a me pushing my fixes on them, just me being there for them. And I didn't realize that they were actually hurting me in the process, that I was being drained and basically used by them, and didn't realize it until a very long while later. And so sometimes my spiritual boundaries in those senses, and I know it's a little more physical, but it is spiritual because of the fact that it was energetically draining for me. And it took time away from my practice to be there for these types of people. And I knew that it was taking time away and I didn't correct it because I'm like, no, they need a friend. They need somebody to be there for them. And I cared about the person. And that was really hard for me when I realized how much I was letting slip through the cracks because of the fact that I was giving so much to this other person. And that's one example. And another one is I tend to not remember where the boundaries of balance are. And this is a little more abstract than clear cut, but I tend to not remember where the balance of or the boundary of balance is, because in my brain, and this is being chronically ill, you don't have the capabilities of doing all the things anymore. And it's a really hard thing to come to grips with when you get diagnosed with a chronic illness, that you're limited. You're you're still sick. You don't get to be better at what you want to do. And so, but in your head, because of how you were raised, society, and everything else, you get that mindset in your head that's like, oh, well, I can't rest. I can't do these things. I have to maintain the status quo. I have to keep pushing forward and keep doing all the things, even when your body's screaming, girl, stop. Like, sit down,
Yeah.
please. And
Yeah.
so where that kind of comes into spiritual play is I will overwork myself. And
Mm.
we've talked about this in a few episodes, but the sabbatical, and I'm not going to go deep into it. If you want to know more, go back and listen. Um, but that was a really big moment of going, you don't have a boundary with balance. And it's like, oh, but you thought you did. And then when you realize it, you're just like, oh, well, shit. Now what? And trying to find that's really hard because that's probably the biggest struggle of being somebody who wants to do all the things and has the mental capacity to do those things, but doesn't have the physical
Mhm.
capacity to do it.
Yes.
And so that's really hard to remember. I have to set a boundary with myself, not with the outside world. I mean, yes, a little bit, but more with myself to say, you are allowed to do this much before you will start hurting yourself. And if you don't do that much and you try to push past that, you may not be okay to do anything tomorrow.
Yes.
You have a cutoff time, you have a cutoff line. You can do X, Y, and Z when your brain starts getting mushy and you can't articulate things and you start getting to that point of going, and it takes you 10 minutes to come up with a whole like response to a question. That's usually when you're hitting that line, you're bumping against it and you have to stop. And it's not because you don't want to keep going. You have the drive to keep going, but you don't have the capability to do so. And it's a really
Mhm.
hard thing to come to grips with. And I've been
Yeah.
chronically ill for over a decade now, and I still struggle with this. And I probably will forever, to be honest, because I am an ambitious person. I'm somebody who wants to do all the things, who wants to start all the projects, maybe finish them occasionally if ADHD lets me. um, and remember that I I wanna do the things to help people. I wanna be there for all the people and do the things. But at the same time, I also have to remember what I'm capable of. And so that's my boundary, not just physically, but also spiritually, because all of that bleeds into my spiritual work. And it makes it to where and my spiritual boundaries, I will just let myself walk all over myself, and sometimes I let people walk all over me, even though I know that it's spiritually hurting me. And so that's kind of where on paper it looks great. I look like I'm a very guarded, strong-willed person and can do all the things, but in practice, I'm not.
Right.
So,
Right.
and it's hard to admit that, but the truth is when you get to that point of being able to admit it, it's it helps a lot because then you go, "Oh yeah, I'm not able to do this." And it's not a failure. It's not a failure of my body. It's not a failure of me. And when I first got diagnosed, I thought that, yes, but I've come to better grips with it and go, I just make a joke that it's like the gods had to temper my ass, otherwise I was going to be too powerful. So I that's how I keep my maintained smile through it, even when I want to do all the things that sometimes I'm not meant to do those things, not just because it's not in the cards. It probably is in the cards. It's just going to take me longer to get there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's not a bad thing. And honestly, taking the long scenic road tends to be better because it gives me more time to make things better. So there's my answer.
Yeah. So I have the sabbatical actually taught me the same thing with balance. So I'm not gonna rehash that. The same chronic illness, the same everything, not the same chronic illness, but the same lesson with chronic illness.
Mhm.
Um, but balance and learning how to balance family and spiritual life and all of the things that you have to balance. And it just taught me so much about being able to be there in all of the different facets of how a person is there for everyone and everything in your life. And the boundaries that you have between those things, if that even makes sense. It's hard to describe. It's one of those out there conversations that you have to have. Um, but same, sames. Sames.
Sames.
The other way that, my spiritual boundaries look good in theory, but fall apart in practice is with my family as in not my wife, but my parents, my sibling, my family. Um, we have a good yet strained relationship. And so in some areas it's good, in some areas it's strained.
Mhm.
And so my spiritual boundaries with them look good on paper, but when it comes to in person, they fall apart because I'm not willing to draw that hard line in the sand yet. And I know that about myself. I know that I'm not willing to draw that hard line in the sand because if I were, it would mean a much bigger confrontation. It would mean a much bigger um conversation than they are willing to handle at this moment. And I know that about them. So it's one of those things I'm biding my time till they are ready to have that conversation. So in practice, my boundaries are being pushed right now. And that is one of those things that I fight with. I fight with that boundary, and I move it, and I move it back, and I move it, and I move it back. I move it to where it is, and it's one of those lines that is a little wiggly. I move it to where it's supposed to be, and then I'll move it back a little bit, and then I move it to where it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And it's just one of those dances that I have to go through because I know they're not ready to have that conversation yet.
Yeah, sames.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not ready to have that conversation yet. So, that's my, I guess, burden to bear at the moment, and I'm not ready to give up that relationship
Yeah.
at this moment. I'm not ready to give up that relationship.
It's hard
And
to
I think that's what it would come to, is giving up that relationship if it were to come to that conversation.
yeah. See, it's all, rosemary and roses when you look at and say, "Oh, yes, I have strong boundaries and people respect me." It looks good on paper. It sounds
It does.
good in your head, but the actual practice of it is entirely different. It's that whole
Yes.
easier said than done kind of thing.
Yes.
And yeah, no, I'm in the same boat with you, having that conversation with family about who you are and, what you practice and the type of person you are. It's one of those things you can't really have that conversation with somebody who's not willing to listen to it.
Yes.
And it's not that you don't want to, it's because
Yeah.
they are not open enough to
They're not
hear
ready.
and they're not ready.
They're just they're not ready to hear it.
Yeah. And that it's hard. It's a hard thing. So sorry to start the conversation with the heavies, y'all, but
I know. The heavy questions are in the that's where the heavies is.
that is where the heavies are. Um, so I guess kind of moving on to the next one, uh, is what does your physical state, sleep, stress, emotions, mental health influence, or how does your physical state influence your spiritual hygiene habits? And what patterns do you notice when one's neglected? Oh. um
Another heavy.
Another heavy, and it's harder. This question's hard because being somebody who's chronically ill and you deal with higher stress levels, higher, lack of sleep, elevated emotions, diminished mental health, physical, ailments and those kinds of things. It's hard because that's your daily. You
It's
don't just,
usual.
yeah, it's your usual. You don't get a break from that. And I'm sure probably hearing that for some folks is like, whoa, you have to deal with that all the time. Yes. You just learn to live
Yes.
with it. But how that affects your spiritual hygiene is it ends up short answer, the spiritual hygiene kind of ends up taking a back seat sometimes because you don't have the ability to maintain it. And, we talked in the last episode of, the different ways that we do that. But yes, being chronically ill, the truth is that sometimes chronic illness takes such a huge chunk of your life and your energy and your practice and everything in between that everything that is not that chronic illness or related to it gets pushed aside. And it's not because you want that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um it's because you have no other option. It boils down to I'm just trying to make it through another day without having to go to the ER. And
Yeah.
then there's other days where you just don't have the physical capability for it because your system is flaring so bad that the only thing you can do is literally take a nap. And, we
Yeah.
talked in the last episode about replenishing and how naps are part of replenishment, but sometimes they're necessity. It's not just about replenishment. It's literally the body has now gone into shutdown mode. Please check back later after the scheduled reboot. Like that's
Yes.
literally how it feels. Um so that aside, during the good times when your physical state, sleep, stress, emotions, physical, all of that, I would say not factoring in chronic illness because, again, that's a daily, just
A daily.
a good day where that's not being a problem or as much of a problem. Sleep makes it hard when because I'm tired and then I want to not do the spiritual hygiene habits because they will take more energy from me. Um Even if it's replenishment, sometimes allowing yourself to have a scheduled time to nap sometimes can be challenging. Um Stress is the biggest one for me, and mental health are the two biggest ones that really affect my spiritual hygiene and my spiritual practice. I was talking about in the first question about how I've let people in who I thought I could be there as a friend for them and all of that, but they ended up draining me basically.
Mm,
They would have moments that were so stressful, I would take their stress on as my own. Not intentionally, just because I cared about them enough that I was worried about them. And so my worry was their worry. What they were worried about became mine. And it became, in some instances, so detrimental that I would become exhausted. I would end up having more pain because it would affect my chronic illness. I would end up having migraines. I would end up wanting to be withdrawn. And spiritual hygiene, spiritual practice, those didn't exist in those moments. Not even when I wanted them to exist because I had no capacity because I was holding on for somebody else. And I knew that I was doing it. And it was just one of those things of, but you care about them so much. How do you stop? How do you step aside to be like, okay, this is what I need to do? And eventually, when it came to a head and got to that point of stopping, it caused more issues because of how it had to come to a head. And
yeah,
so, in terms of the spiritual side of that practice, it was hard because I was trying to maintain the balance of being good to myself, being there for friends and family and those who needed me, but also taking the time for my spiritual practice. Thankfully, my deities were completely understanding, but at the same time, it was hard because that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that kind of person. And when my mental health would wane because of those types of situations, it would start to affect my emotions. Then spiritual hygiene again would go right out the window because I didn't have the capacity for it. It was the least thing I was thinking about doing. And the closest I would come to spiritual hygiene practice in those moments would be replenishment. And that was because my body would literally go into such a state that it would force a shutdown. It would force me to withdraw. It forced me to not be around people. It forced me to nap and sleep and rest because it was affecting my chronic illness so much. So,
yeah,
what patterns do I notice? Well, there's a whole lot of patterns there that you really start to pick up that you take on somebody else's stress as your own. You start to feel overwhelmed by it. Plus, you already have all of your stress on top of it. It it becomes this mountain that you just keep stacking stuff on top of it while you're trying to climb it and wondering why you're not reaching the top. And it's hard. It's exceptionally difficult. And it's something that I'm having to work on as a person. Um, Even still, even to this day, I've been working on it for a long time. And that's just, trauma and people pleasing and all this other stuff that I've had in my own past. Those types of things make it really difficult to work around some of this. And so, as I talked about in the previous episode, the whole healthy selfish thing, that was probably one of the best things I've ever adopted into my own practice and my own life is Sometimes just telling people no. Sometimes leaving a situation before you start to react, before you have the capabilities of taking in more than you can handle. And that's one of the things that I had to do to start helping myself. And then it would give me the ability to actually start maintaining my spiritual hygiene as well as my spiritual practice. God, I hope I answered
Yeah.
that question. I think I did.
I think you did. So, how does my physical state influence my spiritual habits, spiritual hygiene habits? My sleep, if I'm not sleeping well, forget it. I just forget them. I literally forget them. Um, Stress doesn't affect me as much. Um, my mental health definitely does. I have chronic depression, and my physical and spiritual hygiene habits, they just go. It's part of depression. And they they wane. It's like, "Oh, you need to shower, you need to do your things, you need to do all of the daily hygiene practices," but the depression tells you that you can't. The depression tells you it's too hard. The depression tells you it's too much. And so I literally have my wife who's like, "Okay, let's go get in the shower. Let's go do this thing. You can do it. We can do this.
Mhm.
We can do this." And so when my mental health is bad, my spiritual hygiene habits, they're on the floor, honestly. They're just down there on the list of things that I have to do. I forget to eat. You can ask Pagan. We have a daily thing. Did you eat lunch?
Mhm. I
Did
forget because
you
of ADHD, and she forgets, and so we remind each other to do
We
it,
remind each
especially when
other
we're working.
every day. Have you had a snack today? Have you eaten lunch? Did you eat breakfast?
Did you
Did
take
you
your
do the
meds and drink
thing?
your
Have you
water?
had water? Have you done all the things? Like, it is a literal daily activity of us asking each other, "Did you do the things?"
Mhm.
And so, it's one of the mental health struggles that I bear, and that's part of my spiritual struggles, hygiene struggles that goes with it is, did you cleanse today? Did you do your weekly habits that you do? Did you do your replenishment that you need to do for your body? Did you do something this week that spiritually that requires a full cleansing? Did you do something this week that requires extra grounding, extra whatever it may be? Did you do something that requires more hygiene? And the patterns that I notice is when my sleep and my mental health is affected, I'm just on the floor with my hygiene practice. It's one of the first things to go out the door. And that shouldn't be the case, but honestly it is.
Mhm.
It's one of the first things that goes whoop out of my brain. And it's one of the things that I should have on autopilot, but it's not. And that's one of those things where, hey, that's one of the things I've got to get better at. I've got to make it so that's an automatic thing that you do your hygiene, you do your practices, and I've gotta get better at that as a person.
Mhm. And the thing is, like, a lot of people assume, and I can't tell you how many people I've come in contact with, they're like, "Oh, you're a priestess. You must have all of the things perfectly down to pat." Nope. I still forget
No,
deity
no.
offerings. I still forget to do my spiritual hygiene. I still have moments where I'm like, "Hey, I have had 10,000 things to do today. I don't have time to even say hello to you, but hi, how's it going? I'm going to bed. Good night." Like, you
Yeah,
don't have, it's not perfect because you're human.
yeah,
I wish being a
yeah,
priestess made it to where, I had all my ducks in a row. I don't even know where half my ducks are. They might be at Kayla's house because she collects ducks. I don't know.
yeah. They may be at my
They might
house.
be at
What
her
color
house.
was it? What color was it, and was it wearing a costume?
um, but that's kind of how it is. Like, when you take on a title, it's not so much that you are better at everything. You're not.
You
You don't
don't
have.
automatically become perfect or become some wonderful being because you have a title.
The
You
interesting,
just
yeah,
have a title now.
yeah. You have a title, and the funny thing is, the title doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you chose to be in service.
It
Even
means you
if it
have more
doesn't,
responsibility.
yeah, even if it doesn't look perfect. And, we've talked in past episodes about, when Morgan called me to be her priestess. It was funny because I was like, "Okay, lady, I don't think you know what you're doing, but I'm trusting you. Okay, lady."
Yeah,
And then you do it, and she doesn't expect perfection. She doesn't
no,
expect the most perfect rituals. She knows that sometimes I
not at
stutter.
all.
She knows that sometimes I forget my words. She knows that sometimes my MS makes it even to where it's hard for me to talk. I have Team J issues, and sometimes my jaw will lock and it makes it really hard for me to do what I need to do. And so in those moments, how do you say your ritual aloud? Can you? Should you? And that air of perfection can also affect your spiritual hygiene because it makes you
And
think,
it's not reality.
no, it's so not. But it makes you think and feel like you are doing something wrong because you're not doing it right. You're not doing it the way that's, no shade to anybody who does pretty Instagram stuff. I tend to follow a lot of those people because I think it's pretty and it makes me, happy and nerd out. Um, but to the Instagram witches out there, like, that's most of the time not real. The pretty stuff you see on the internet that's ideal and awesome and perfect, that's not reality. Reality is messy, it's chaotic, it's complicated. And for
And
us, it's really
and the
complicated.
Instagram stuff is one moment in
Yeah.
time.
It
It's one single moment of perfection.
Mhm.
It's not reality, it's not real life, it's not the chaos of going through the steps. It's one snapshot of a moment
It's not
where
a
everything came into alignment,
it's that
where you
moment.
held your tongue just right and got a perfect picture.
Yes, exactly. It's that moment I've deep cleaned my altar and it's perfect and there's pretty flowers I just bought. The deities are happy. All the offering
Exactly,
bowls are clean and it's so pretty. I snap a photo. But before that, the chaos you didn't
exactly,
see was that my dog ran off with one of the skulls I keep on my altar and I had to fight to get it back before he
exactly,
swallowed it. And because they're little,
exactly.
or that moment where you're like, "Oh crap, I just dropped a statue. Did you break? Oh god." And then, if it does and you're like, "Damn it, let me go find the glue and fix it."
Where's the E6000?
Right? And so you have those moments where you don't see that because it's such chaos in the middle of it that you don't have time to videotape it or look at me sounding old, video it, record it, post it on TikTok. You know,
Let me get it off of the tape and onto CD and onto
right? You don't have the time to record it and do all the things you wanna do with it. And like I said, I follow a lot of those pretty Instagram witch accounts, and they're gorgeous and I love them and they give me dopamine looking at them because they're beautiful and I love the people that actually take the time to do it. But that's not reality. And I know that's not reality, but it gives me dopamine to look at it and go, "Oh, that's so pretty. I love that. I love that for you. I love that it's all dark and spooky and raining outside and you got your candle going. Like, awesome. Like, I love you for this. Thank you for sharing." Um, my life is like, Spencer, come back with that skull. Stop chasing your sister with it. Don't do that. Put it down and please don't eat it. I don't have the money for that vet bill, please. Like, come on. That's the reality, is those moments of this happens, or the moment when you stutter in the middle of ritual and go, "Well, I got that wrong. Hold on. Excuse me, deities. One moment, please. I need to reread this line because, you know," and you stumble over it. Your intent doesn't change. Your
No.
focus might wane for a second because you realize you stuttered, but for the most part, that's just life. And I think we as practitioners often forget that even spiritual hygiene habits aren't always perfect.
No.
Sometimes my spiritual hygiene is literally turning Sleep Token on as loud as I can and just screaming it out at the top of my lungs because that's the only thing I've got in me. And then I go take a
Sometimes
nap.
mine is having a seizure and just laying down after the seizure and going, "Uh."
I can vouch, I've been there for that.
Just going, and going, "Okay, that happened. Let's just sit here and breathe."
So, kind of saying all of that really segues us into the next part of, one of the questions. This is not the exact question, but we answered the other part, which is which replenishing practices genuinely restore you. We did that in the last episode. So if you want to know more about those practices that really work for us, go back to the episode and listen to it. Hopefully you've listened to it before this episode, because otherwise this one may not really make sense.
Yeah.
But if you're going backwards, that's fine too, power to the chaos of you. But which ones do you reach for because you think you should? We're gonna kind of tell you what we used to reach for, because of the fact that we know what should be done now and what works for us now. But there, in the beginning, many, many moons ago, when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. I mean, what? I'm not that old. It feels that way. In those moments when you're first starting out, you read all the books, you do all the things. I thought I had to have all the pieces to every little practice and every little thing and all of the herbs and all of the candles and all of the stuff. And almost made myself go bankrupt trying to buy it all. And now I know that none of that's true. None of that's true. So the spiritual hygiene practices that genuinely restore me, again, we've already talked about, but the ones that I thought I should reach for was, I thought that I had to do a smoke cleanse every day. Like some sort of incense cleanse every day, ringing bells every day, taking a salt bath every week. I had to do every full moon and new moon and every moon ritual in between. I had to do all of the things that I was supposed to do, and I had to cook full offerings for my deities and all of these things that are technically spiritual habits or spiritual hygiene. And the truth is, I burnt myself out trying to do them all. I literally got to the point where I'm like, what's the point? This doesn't even feel right. Like, what am I doing? And so then I stopped, and then I realized, oh, well, what works? And that made it a heck of a lot better. But I literally thought for a very long time that I had to do incense cleanses, despite the fact that the incense would make me cough ridiculously and feel like crap afterwards, because I had tried to hack up a lung in the process of doing it, or the spiritual bath that made me feel itchy afterwards because I was trying to put herbs in it that, turns out my skin doesn't really like to touch those. Like, I was trying to do all the things because everyone recommended it somewhere. You'd hear it from a spiritual teacher, or you would read it in a book, or you would do the things, and it's like, oh, well, if it's in here, I must do it, right? I have to do these things. And it got to the point where, again, I was burning myself out, but I was also kind of harming myself in the process. Now, I can't burn stuff in my house. If I burn, literally, it's like 1, maybe 2 bay leaves, and even then I have to open up all the doors, turn on all the fans, and do all the things, and probably step outside for, like, a good 10 minutes so my lungs don't freak out because I can't do the smoke. It hurts me, but I was trying to. I was trying to do all those things, and I would make the big, huge meals as part of an offering, but also do all the things. And I'd spend, an hour and a half cooking all of these big, huge meals or doing these super long, in depth rituals to try to make sure I was getting it right. And honestly, all of it was just exhaustive. I'm not saying that doesn't work for some folks, but for me personally, it was exhaustive. And back then, I didn't realize I was chronically ill, and so I was trying to do all of these things and trying to be, perfect in all of the ways to be perfect, follow all the habits and all the things, and then when I would meet other more advanced or, more experienced spiritual practitioners who wouldn't do all those things, I would almost be offended because I'm like, "Why aren't you doing this? Like, shouldn't you do this first?" And they're like, "No, I just don't like it." But they'd never explained to me why. And so I would pretty much, like I said, almost be offended because they weren't doing all the exhaustive things that I was doing. And now, looking back, I'm like, wow, that was really bad of me. Like, whew, I shouldn't have been trying to do half the crap. And like I said, if that's something that works for you, go with it. Absolutely. If that's something that gives you joy and you have the means, the capacity, and all the stuff to do it, go with it. But if you're somebody like me that's like, I would rather burn a bay leaf, say a few words, and, put like a cup of coffee on my altar as an offering and it works, then guess what? That works. It's not going to be
Yeah,
something that's terrible. Spiritual hygiene can be very basic or it can be very exhaustive. It depends on what I'm trying to do in the moment and what I feel like I need to do. If I've done something that, made me poke a proverbial bear, so to speak, and I need a heavy cleanse, I need a heavy cleanse. But if I don't, then I don't. And I had to learn that it doesn't have to be perfect. And that was one of those things of you thought you should have to do this because that's what perfection demanded. And at the end of the day, when you really started looking at it, you're like, no, perfection is just hard to achieve because what is perfect to one will never be perfect to somebody else. And perfection may also be something you can never truly achieve. And so you're constantly fighting against it, trying to get there when you actually can't. And that was really hard to kind of comprehend in the beginning. And then when I started realizing I was hurting myself and burning myself out because of it, I did what felt right and was good for me and worked over what I thought I should do. I still do all of
right,
the hygiene practices. I still do them all. But I do them in ways that work with me, my body, my time, my energy,
right,
and I don't expect perfection. And I know
right.
that I'm still gonna mess up. I know I'm gonna forget. I know that stuff's gonna happen. And it doesn't make me any less of a practitioner because of that. It makes me human.
Yeah.
And to hold anybody or somebody else to the standard of you have to do this on every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, otherwise the world is going to end. You're gonna drive yourself nuts. It's not tangible
It's
to
not
do that.
sustainable.
No. So, that's some of the stuff that I thought that I had to do all the time, and it wasn't a sustainable practice for me. So, there you go. That's my 2 thoughts.
So when I was first starting out, some of the stuff that I thought I had to do were smoke cleanses all the time, I thought I had to do them. I thought that they were just the bee's knees, that I had to do those to cleanse and clear. And I don't know why Spirit is telling me that this needs to be said. I thought that every ritual or anything that I did, I had to open with calling the corners,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then I
that
had to
too.
do closing with calling the corners, closing the corners. I had that I had to do that because if I didn't, something was going to go wrong. And if I didn't do that, then I wasn't going to clear my energy the right way. And the energy of the ritual wasn't going to be closed the right way. And it wasn't going to be cleared the right way. And it's just all of that stuff that I thought I had to do was just exhausting. And rituals and even just burning incense outside with a cold disc would take hours and hours because I would be calling the corners, and then I would be doing my ritual, and then I would be burning the incense, and then I would have to call the corners again, and then I would do da 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 da, and then cleaning everything up. And I would be outside on the porch for hours doing this one thing. And I'm just like, there's got to be some better way than this. Do a cleansing of the house, do a cleansing of me. There's got to be some better way.
Also, no
So,
shade to anybody who does that, just for the record. Just
no, no
if
shade.
that's what works for you, awesome. That for
Yes, if that
Kayla
is
and I
you,
who work with Loki and chaos, nope, not so much.
if that is you and that makes you gloriously happy, then you be gloriously happy and do that. I will be gloriously happy for you.
Mhm.
But for me, I just couldn't do it anymore, and being chronically ill, I couldn't do it anymore. I could not go through that length of ritual and that length of stuff so often, and I couldn't take that much time away from physical needs.
Mhm.
And so those things are things that I thought I should do and thought I needed to do and thought that those were the things that I was supposed to be doing. And if I didn't do them, then I wasn't a good witch.
Mhm.
And if I wasn't a good witch, then what did that mean for me being a witch? If I wasn't a good one, then what was the point in being one? And that got my brain going, okay. And then I went spiraling. And so the difference now is I do cleansings, I do grounding, I do all of my hygiene practices. And I know I do them when I need them.
Mhm.
I do them as I need them. I do them regularly, and I don't spiral. I don't go into the spiral of, I'm not a good witch because I don't do this, or because I didn't do it on this time, or on this schedule, or on this, in this way, because there's not a specific way that you have to do them. If you do the whole ritual of opening and calling the corners and that makes you happy, then that's your way.
Mhm.
If you do just a smoke cleanse with an incense stick and that's what feeds your soul, then that's your way. If you do shaking it off like I do and that's your way of cleansing, then that's your way. And that's what you have energy for. And none of those make you a bad witch.
Mm.
None of those make you a bad witch, and none of those turn you into that spiral of what's the use of being a witch.
I think all of that is so valid. the the funny thing about all of that is like, yeah, in the beginning, I calling the corners, doing all the things, doing the big heavy cleansing rituals for something that was small, and turning it into a
Yeah,
big ritual was, like if you wanted to, do any like, I said before, doing like spell work for like moon rituals and stuff like that. Doing the
yeah,
whole drawing down the moon and then calling the corners and then calling in the deities and then maybe this is taking like 45 minutes at that point by the time you
yes,
get done with everything. Then you get to do your petition, which is like 3 lines of, hey, help me secure whatever and thanks, or, like help me get rid of whatever or whatever it may be, right? And
yeah,
then you have to release the deity, thank the moon again, close out the, charge of the moon and charge of the goddess and everything in between. And then after that, you release the corners, and then you have to go and do grounding and cleansing and all the stuff you're
yeah,
supposed to be doing.
and what I was doing was doing a incense cleanse, which is a coal disc,
Mhm.
which takes an hour to burn.
Yeah.
So, instead of doing, like, your little 3 lines, there was an hour at least in the middle of there of an incense cleanse.
Mhm.
So, it was like 45 minutes, and then an hour, and then another 45 minutes. I was out there for, like, 3 or 4 hours at a time
Mhm.
because I had cleanup too.
Yeah. And
I was like, "This is an entire afternoon project."
the funny thing is too, like when you're first starting out though, they don't tell you that like those charcoal briquettes, the little things you used for charcoal incense, you can break those suckers into pieces.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can break them into quarters.
Yeah. They
They
don't
don't
tell
tell
you
you
that.
that.
So
Nobody tells you that.
they're like, "No, you have to burn the charcoal disc and put your little mound of incense in it and make sure that it still continues to smoke as the charcoal burns down, and don't rush the process because it's gonna mess it all up." Yes, I was literally told that. Like, I can't even tell you, like,
Oh
all the
gosh.
amounts of nonsense that I was trying to perfect when I first started out, and it was so hard and so difficult for me to maintain it. And again, we are not throwing any shade at anybody who does this, by the way. This is just
No,
our
no.
personal thing. This is how this works for us. It was too much in those moments for us. But it doesn't make it wrong because you do it, and it doesn't make us wrong for not doing it. What we do
Yeah.
instead is a different form of that practice that works within us. Um, Me being also a priestess of Loki, so I'm a priestess of the Morgan, a priestess of Loki, and a priestess of Anubis, and all that. So, being also a priestess of Loki, you get thrown chaos curveballs all the time. And so you have to learn to roll with the chaos. And I, in the beginning, was like, why is this briquette not burning? And it was because I had made so much of an incense blend that I snuffed the charcoal out. Yes, you can actually do that.
You can snuff the charcoal
You
out.
can
Yes, you
snuff it
can.
out and smother it and all that because it needs oxygen. If it can't get any oxygen because you put too much incense on it, well, it's going to go out and it's not going to burn. And so I got to the point where I was like, there has to be a better way, something that doesn't hurt my lungs, something that's not going to be this thing. I found that I make essential oil sprays, and those work a lot better. I can spray a little bit and it works just fine. It still gives me that emotional, happy smell stuff from, burning and that you would normally get. But I also get the cleansing properties of the herbs and their oils, and it works. And obviously I do pet safe because I have pets and all that, but, make sure if that's something that you're gonna try, research what is, because some oils you can't have around cats and some you can't have around reptiles and some you can't have around dogs. So
Birds.
birds and all that, make sure that you're being safe with that if that's something you do. The same with incense burning. Also burning some of those herbs is not safe around pets. So be safe about that too. And fire safety always. Um but yeah, it's funny when you really start to think about all the stuff that you were told that you should do or felt like you should do. And then you, years later, like, cool, I'm going to go burn a bay leaf, light a tea candle, let the tea candle burn down, and then I'm going to go do whatever I need to do after that. And it maybe
Oh,
takes you
yes.
15 minutes
And the
instead of,
candles that I
yeah,
thought I needed. Oh my gosh. And, like, now it's like a tea light. I'm good.
yeah. You do not need a candle that's gonna burn for 17 hours in one sitting. And also, I for those who are new, I really want to reiterate one little thing for you because you probably have been told that, "Oh, I have to let the candle completely burn down for the spell to work." No, you don't. You can snuff it out if and go to bed or do what you need to do or go to work or whatever, and then just continue the spell work again later when you have time to relight the candle. You can extend that spell over several days. You don't have to reburn your incense or any of those things. You relight the candle, you say the words again, and let the spell continue to work. It's fine. It will work just the same. You don't have to burn it all in one go. And if you don't have, a couple of hours to sit there with a tea light, and you sure as heck don't have, 6 to 8 hours to sit there with a votive or so on, by all means, just relight it until it burns out over the course of several days. It still works, trust me. I
You
was
heard it here.
I was literally one of those witches that would, start, a ritual with like a votive at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that thing would still be burning at 11 o'clock at night when I needed to go to bed. And I'm like, I have to go to bed. Are you almost done? Like, hello? Hello?
Did
And
you finish yet?
are you done? Like, yeah, no. And eventually you get to that point where you're just like, well, I hope it's burned enough. I guess I'm just gonna have to blow it out because I have to go to bed. I can't let it burn overnight without watching it. And no, you should never let it do that, by the way, ever. That's how home fires start. Don't do that. But yeah, like literally I would just get to the point where I would hope and pray for the best and blow it out. And also, yes, you can blow your candles out. Again, just use fire safety. Snuffing is fine if that works for you. If you don't have the ability to snuff and you just can have to blow it out, it also works the same. You're not going to blow the magic away from doing it. I've
No.
done thousands of spells and blown out probably hundreds, if not thousands of candles and never had one malfunction because I blew the flame out. So, yeah, don't panic about that. But anyway, all the stuff that I thought that we should be doing that was not energetic hygiene. We went on a tangent there for a minute.
We went on a tangent, but
Um,
it's okay. For
it was
some
good
reason, Spirit
information.
needed us to say that.
Yes, it was good information. Um, but yeah, all the stuff that I thought I should be doing, and we also thought that we should be doing, it turns out sometimes that's just not even necessary. Sometimes the simplest thing of even saying an incantation while you're on your way to work or whatever without your altar, without your candle, without your stuff works because it's all you've got. The only thing you have in front of you to do. You don't have time to go sit at an altar. You don't have time to do that. So you just say it on your way to work, or you say it on your way out the door, or you say it while you're walking the dog, or, trying to take, the stick away from the dog so it doesn't eat it like my house, but, whatever works. Um, and that's not to make light of magic, just for the record. That is just the real world chaos magic that sometimes happens. Is yes, sometimes the only time you have is while you're chasing the dog while it's trying to bring a giant stick in the house. And so you're reciting your spell work for whatever reason while you're chasing the dog, probably making your deities laugh while you scream, "No, Spencer, stop it, put it down." And they don't care. They are probably laughing right there alongside of you. And it's like, I heard your petition. That was funny. Thanks for the laugh. I'm going to go get to work on your stuff. It still works. I can't tell you why, but it does. As long as you have the intent and the willingness to put forth the effort for it. Sometimes the smallest effort is all that's necessary. As long as you're also doing the mundane stuff to back it up, depending on what you're asking. So,
Yes.
anyway, enough about that. Do what you think
Enough.
works best for you and hope for the best. And the ones that genuinely work for you. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So, moving on to the last question we have here. What does being energetically full feel like for me? What fills me up on a soul level, not just physically, but spiritually? Oh, spiritually and physically. Hmm. It depends
Mm.
from day to day, honestly. Um, Sometimes it's music that will do it. Sometimes it will be communion with, my witchy sisters and family and all that. Sometimes it's listening to my grandbaby giggle. Sometimes it's having my dog look at me with his big soulful eyes and just that whole "I love you, please never leave me" kind of look. Sometimes that works. Um, and that's not just physically, that's spiritually too. That, you know, the things that bring joy and, you know, goodness into your life. And then there's moments where you just get that, I don't know how to describe it, kind of, I guess you could say witchy shiver that just knows that you've had that touch of something that worked really well, and it's kind of like, you know, getting kind of zapped a little bit, not in a bad way, but that whole like, "Ooh, I got juice for that. Let's go do something now." Um, and sometimes it's you read something, you write something, you listen to something. Um, Sometimes spiritually is asking Loki to come hang out with me while I play video games. And it's not so much that it's energetically draining or energetically filling, it's what works in that moment. And so it's not something that I would say is traditional. And traditional stuff like doing ritual and all of those things and being full, being in communion with others and stuff like that. Those are nice. Those are good and they do work. But I would say the inconspicuous ones, the ones that are not traditional in any sense, work the best. And what does it feel like for me? I feel like I have the ability to do things without being prompted to do spiritual things without being prompted. That's what it feels like when I'm full. I don't have to say, "Oh, I should do this." This is one of those things of, "I need to do this." It's not anything like that. It becomes this whole, "Let's go do this because it's gonna be fun and I'm gonna be excited about it and it's gonna be good for me." And, to go have a conversation with your date and be like, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in like 2 weeks. How you been? Tell me about your life. Let's have tea together." I mean, honestly, like, those kinds of moments when it's not, I guess you could say, prompted, is when you realize I'm full. I'm good. I'm I don't know always how I get there. Sometimes it's just enough rest. Sometimes it's enough time spiritually spent with energetically awesome people who support you and care about you, and maybe it's a really good ritual that you did the night before and you've rested since then and you just are still riding the high from it. Um those are the things that kind of do that. And I don't know. It's that one's a hard one to really answer, and I know that it's a hard one also for our students to answer because
Yeah,
a lot of our students are like, "I don't know how to answer this." Don't feel bad, neither do we. Like, we wrote it, but it's because it's meant to make you think about it, and I would say that
yeah,
probably it's things that are unusual that not only bring me physical joy, but also bring me spiritual joy. And yes, those
yes,
can overlap, and that's fine. And so it's not just the whole what gives you energy on a physical level, physical level, food, sleep, um, playing with my dog, those kinds of things, hanging out with good friends. That can be physical, but it can also be spiritual too. Depending on the friends you're hanging out with, depending on, sometimes Spencer will absolutely be like, "Mom, what you doing? Like, you doing magic work? Can I help?" His definition of helping is occasionally giving me the paw and being like, "Love me." I mean, it helps, but it's also those moments to be like, don't take yourself too seriously because you have somebody else that's there that's trying to make you smile all the time. or having those moments when you get, I guess, that feeling of being truly blessed and realizing that even though life is not perfect, some moments are. And for me, a lot of those moments are, I get to see my grandbaby and I get to see her and I get to hear her little raspberries and her giggles and see the big silly goofy smile that she has that I love so much. Um that in itself is soul medicine that you can't bottle that or find it anywhere else. Like, it's also that, same moment when you have like a puppy that comes up to you and just lays its head on you and is like, "Hi, I love you. You're awesome." And you're just like, "You're the most precious little thing I've ever seen in my life. Do it again." Um, you can't buy that anywhere. You can't really I mean, I'm sure you could probably find it elsewhere, but for me, like, whew, that will take, like, if my soul bar is down to, like, 0, one little smile of hers, and it is, like, 110. I can't describe why that does it. I don't understand it. It is a whole new level of stuff, and, my kids still do that to me too, like, but I think it's because, this is the next generation. My generation that I raised has made the next one, and it's like, "You did good. That's a good one." Like,
That's a good egg.
"That's a good egg." Um, and I don't know, it's exciting in that moment, and so, I know these are not traditional answers that a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, do you have a spiritual practice that works?" Probably. But I'm also a chaos witch. Like, what would be magically practical in my book may be absolute chaos and nonsense to somebody else. Like, for example, Loki, communion with him and playing video games is really interesting and really wild. And he will bring so much joy into those moments of the silliness of the video game, and sometimes I will do terrible on said video game, and he's just like, "You did good, but you died there. Did you see that?" Like, and why? I don't know, because it brings him joy, and then I get joy out of it too. Another thing that also works is that's spiritually and physically joyful for me and fills me up is I play D&D or tabletop with my friends. Well, I lead them in tabletop, I should say. I don't usually play. About every 2 weeks, and I get to torture them. And I don't know why that's so fun for me, but it is. And they seem to like it. They keep coming back. So, um,
We do.
but it's a really fun experience because I get to not only be creative, but I also get to have the experience with them, and we get to have a good time, a lot of laughter, a lot of, goodness. And there have been times where I've even invited our deities to sit and watch sessions if they choose to. It's up to them. The invitation's there. Hello, doggo. Um,
Ludo's having a fit.
that's okay. We love Ludo. Um, and so in those moments, it's exciting for me because we get to have those really great moments of just being somewhere else and doing something fun without any of the normal responsibilities. And by the time you get done and you've had such a great time for several hours, you're like, okay, I need a nap now, but I'm going to go and take that nap and have a really good time. And we get to experience that with each other. So those are things that make me feel full and fill me up on a soul level and physically and spiritually, because I think that sometimes you can be both and sometimes you need one or the other. But I think that a lot of times, in my case, they overlap. I hope that answered the question for everybody who's listening. I don't even know. Maybe. Um, welcome to Tea Time with Loki, I guess. I don't know.
Tea time with Loki. For me, basically everything you said, but replace grandbaby, because I don't have that, with, hearing my wife laugh, hearing
Mm,
her be in a really good mood,
that
hearing her
that's a
just
good one.
be goofy as hell. because she is goofy as hell. Um, but just that is soul filling,
Mhm.
and hearing her be her usual self is happiness in a bottle, and being in such a great mood that she, like, dances in the kitchen and talks to everything that is an inanimate object.
Mhm.
She'll she'll just make up songs about what she's doing and do the silliest things, and that's her in a good mood, and just watching that is soul filling for me. Watching the dogs be the dogs, we have 3 dogs, and just watching them be themselves is hilarity in a bottle. Ludo, being Ludo right now, is grumbling because there's dogs outside barking.
He just has
Um,
to join in on the conversation, that's all.
he does. Ludo.
Um,
And
this is also to tell
so
everyone we don't record in a studio, we literally record in our homes with our dogs causing chaos around us.
yes,
Ludo
chaos
Ludo is
ensues.
speaking to said chaos, so
What else is energetically filling? Um, Having a really good time on a video game and with my deities hanging out and with my guardians hanging out and then being like, "Go, go, go, do it, do whatever it is that you're supposed to do in the game," and them cheering me on. That's energetically filling.
Mhm.
Um, just hanging out with friends and having a good time. Um, you know, doing random witchiness with friends
Yes.
that we hang out with is energetically filling. And having the best, most random conversations about bananas
Oh my god,
is
yes.
energetically filling. Um,
That's a low-key
you
thing, by the
know,
way. For those who are listening, you're like, "Why bananas?" It's a low-key thing.
low-key thing. I mean, the most random things that random conversations that we get into that have the most those those deep conversations that you get into that are both hilarious and deeply personal at the same time.
Yeah.
Those conversations are energetically filling for me because it's like, yes, they're hilarious, but at the same time, they're getting to know each other so much better, so much on a personal level that your tank gets filled
Yes.
in those moments.
Yes. And to give you guys an example of being like, "Oh, well, those all sound physical too." Physical things that fill me up on a soul level physically is, like, the ability to cook a really intensive dinner. As somebody who's chronically ill, that's really hard, actually, and having the spoons to do that without wearing yourself out, like, that's physically filling. Um, when you have those moments when you're like, "I can do a full workout without having to hurt myself," or, losing all of my spoons in the process of doing it, physically. Those are the moments when you can do those things physically and that fills you up. And then there's, the stuff that seems physical, but it also affects the spiritual side. So just to kind of give you guys some insight into the two as you're thinking about this for yourselves, that might be the difference of what's physical, what's spiritual. And for some people, going to the gym is a spiritual practice. And,
Yeah,
so what my version of physical would be for me would be entirely different for somebody else. So, figure that out on your own. Figure out what works for you and see what fills you spiritually, what makes you want to be engaged in practice more versus what fills you physically, which makes you want to be engaged in physicality and life more. That's kind of the difference between those two for the record. Um So we're A, out of questions, and B, we went over on time. So thank you all for listening, by the way, because for some reason, this, these recordings this month are a little bit long. And I hope that you enjoy the long sessions. We just have a lot to say this time, I guess, which is not a
I
bad
guess.
thing. And so if you want to know more about this lesson and these questions and what we do here, join the Discord. Link is in the show description, or it is on my link tree. You can go there. It's also on witchcornerproductions.com. You can find all the good stuff there. And come join the Discord, hang out with us, get to know us, and also if the tempering path is calling to you, that's the best place you're going to find it. So, thank you guys so much for being listeners of this show. We can't do the show without you. You guys are amazing. Also, thank you guys for listening, because in some of the platforms that the show has been on, we've actually hit #1 on some of them. So thank you so much for that, because without you, we wouldn't be doing that. And I love you guys so much for that. Like, I'm still astounded, like, you guys actually listen to the show that much, that it's that awesome. So thank you for that. A really big thank you for that. So yeah, join us in Discord. You guys are amazing, and be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, take care of yourselves in this crazy world. Drink your water. It's part of your energy hygiene and your all that other stuff. Replenish yourself. And we will see you all next time for another episode. So bye-bye, everyone.